We have one more speaker. His name is Dan Murray, and he's from Immigration Watch Canada, and he's a gentleman who has dedicated decades to exposing the immigration sham that goes on in our nation.
Thank you very much, Brad. I have to say I got a bit of a chuckle out of Kat, because before she started, she came up to me and she said, you know, Dan, I haven't done much public speaking before, so I'm a bit nervous. Well, I think she deserves a special round of applause. Okay, so somebody just corrected the time for me. According to my watch, I thought it was 2:30, but I guess it's around 1:30, eh? Is it around 1:30 now? Yeah, okay. All right, look, I'll sew things up here for you. Try not to be too long about this. I'm the official spokesperson for Immigration Watch Canada, and I've been involved in this immigration issue for probably about over 15 years. And the website that we have is called immigrationwatchcanada.org, and it contains a huge amount of information. And I'll pass on some of that information, today, but it's only a tiny fraction of what's there. Now, what I wanted to talk about, the title I gave to my talk was a short summary of Canada's destructive immigration intake. And the theme of what I'm going to say is that Prime Minister Trudeau's current 300,000 immigration intake is extremely foolish, that he's unaware of important federally financed immigration-related studies that contradict what he thinks and what he does, and that his declarations in the past couple of years that Canada is the world's first post-national state.
No way!
Yeah, no way, that's right. And that Canada's diversity is its strength. Again, no way.
No way!
Those two statements are about as obvious examples as anybody can get that this guy is betraying his own country. And he's got to go. The sooner the better. Where should we send him? Well, how about down to visit Aga Khan permanently? And we'll even collect the money to pay for his one-way ticket, as long as he stays there. Now, we're standing right around Vancouver City Hall, and in the mid-1970s, Vancouver had a mayor by the name of Art Phillips, and he actually said something that was quite revolutionary. I'm just going to read you a couple of the comments that he made. And the comments were immigration related, and he was talking about house prices in the city of Vancouver and the entire Metro Vancouver area. Okay, so here's what he said. I maintain that the primary approach to solving the housing problem in the greater Vancouver area lies in the immediate reduction and future control of immigration. That is something that should be put into Justin Trudeau's head. And yeah, what head? Yes, that's right. You're right. I'll continue with a few more comments that he made. He says, a decade before Expo 86, when Canadian politicians began concerted wooing of East Asian investment in migrants, he said the following, quote, we can and should control that proportion of our population pressure that is represented by the influx of foreigners. Again, quite a revolutionary statement, because if you listen to any mayor in the Metro Vancouver area, none of them have the courage to say something like that now. In fact, if you bring the issue up, they run. Now, this wasn't only Art Phillips saying this. This was actually Mike Harcourt, who later became, the NDP premier, as well as the mayor of Vancouver. So here's what Mike Harcourt had to say. First, it is essential that we relate both the local and the national housing problems to our immigration laws. Are we, in fact, merely trying to create new housing as well as new employment opportunities just to keep pace with the yearly average of 200,000 immigrants that Canada is admitting every year? Obviously, that number has raised. It's up around 300,000 now. And here's how he ended his quote. He says, quote, "Perhaps we should seriously consider whether we can continue to admit so many immigrants." Now, the obvious answer to that is that we can't continue to do it. If we do, we're going to destroy ourselves. In fact, the mass immigration policy that we're going through now is virtual suicide. It's not national suicide. All in the name of multiculturalism, etc. If you want a little catchphrase to remember something about multicultural, the word multicultural, I'll give it to you. The word multicultural is not a description of what or who Canada is. It's a description of who or what Canada is going to become. Let me paraphrase the words of Canada's Prime Minister on this year's Earth Day. Quote, I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say exactly this, but he might as well have said it. Quote, "This Earth Day, take a walk in the woods." That's about what he knows about the background of Earth Day and about Gaylord Nelson. I'd say that it's no exaggeration that Trudeau knows nothing about the founder of Earth Day and about the founder's important purposes in founding Earth Day. Like many people, Trudeau has corrupted Earth Day's intentions and turned it into a piece of environmentalist fluff or greenwashing. Now, to highlight that point, please remember what Trudeau did immediately after getting elected. On the population issue, he increased Canada's immigration from about 250,000 to 300,000. And he's maintained that 300,000 intake for 2017. Also, in response to border crossers, he recently declared that Canada has a place for all those who have been denied refugee status in the U.S. or all those in the U.S. who are there illegally. Trudeau obviously thinks that Canada has room to take unlimited numbers of people. Earth Day founder Gaylord Nelson probably turns over in his grave every Earth Day when he hears people like Trudeau who don't know a bloody thing about what Earth Day is supposed to be all about. Now, here's something that you may not have heard about, but it's on the issue of what Gaylord Nelson is talking about. In 1972, the U.S. Commission on Population and the American Future, which consisted of the most distinguished U.S. economists and other citizens, researched the issue of whether the U.S. should continue increasing its population. Now, at the time of that research, the U.S. had a population of 200 million. Do you know what it is now? Anybody? 320 million around. And by mid-century, it could be well over 400 million. By the end of the, by mid-century that, and by the end of the century, much higher than that. So it's almost like having just a smaller version of China south of the border. It could be that. So this is a fairly serious situation. So here's what the U.S. Commission on Population and American Future concluded. Quote, "We have looked for and have not found any convincing argument for continued national population growth. The health of our economy does not depend on it. The vitality of business does not depend on it. The welfare of the average person does not depend on it. Don't listen to the developers. They don't have you or your good, your well-being in mind." Now I'm going to switch to something that happened in Canada around the same time. In 1976, probably in response to the work done in the U.S., Ottawa asked the Science Council of Canada to do an inventory of Canada's resources and to make recommendations on an optimum population for Canada. Now, that's bloody well revolutionary, to actually say that maybe you've got limits on, the number of people you can take and the amount of energy that you have in the ground, and so on, like that. The Science Council of Canada, for the sake that for the information of people here might not know about them, consisted of Canada's best scientists. Its conclusions were similar to the conclusions of the founder of Earth Day. That's a key point. And to those of the U.S. Commission on Population and the American Future. Here are its recommendations. I think these are good. Canada does not have an infinite number of resources. It must conserve the resources it has in order to protect the future needs of Canadians. 2, Canada has a large geographical mass, but much of it is virtual cold deserts, and Canada cannot support an infinitely increasing population. It's naive to think that Canada can solve world population problems by allowing large numbers of immigrants from overpopulated countries into Canada. 3, Canada should take measures to ensure its future food security by conserving its very limited supply of farmland and not allowing farmland to be built upon. Canada also has to ensure its limited energy supply. It cannot continue to extract energy resources, here they're talking about fossil fuels, and sell them as quickly as possible. 4, to achieve these goals and maintain a good standard of living, Canada has to limit population growth and stabilize its population. Canada's immigration since 1991 has been a major abnormality in Canada's immigration history. If there had been a sensible reason for increasing immigration, that increase in immigration intake might have been excusable. However, according to Canada's immigration at the time, the Mulroney government increased immigration so that the Progressive Conservative Party could capture more of the immigrant vote. That has to be one of the most shameless and corrupt actions any Canadian immigration minister has ever committed. All federal governments since then should have done something to correct this corrupt and shameless action, but they did nothing. In fact, all took a hands-off stance on relentless high immigration. And today, if you were to ask any of the 4 major political parties in Canada, they would all say that they support Canada's high immigration intake. And why? Well, mostly it's because they fear that if they speak out against this corrupt policy, they will lose their share of the recent immigrant vote. So the big question is this: what have been the consequences? Well, the overall result has been that Canada has taken close to 8 million immigrants since 1991. The increase has caused many Canadians, now listen to this, folks, it's caused many Canadians to feel like strangers in their own communities. It's caused unnecessary competition for jobs, more preferential hiring for visible minorities, and, might I add, discrimination against white females and white males, both. Yeah. It's caused other things. loss of precious farmland. Go out into the Fraser Valley to see what's happening. Gridlock on our roads, and a host of other problems. But the clearest and the most painful result of relentless high immigration has been relentless demand for housing in Canada's high immigrant receiving areas. And that means Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. What can be more damaging to lives than to be unable to afford shelter, either as a purchaser of housing or as a renter of housing? According to UBC Professor David Lay, relentless high immigration has been the clear cause of out-of-control house prices. Other UBC academics have confirmed David Lay's findings. The message about Trudeau should be clear. Trudeau's current 300,000 immigration intake is extremely foolish. That's putting it mildly. Some people here might say it's stupid. He's unaware of important immigration-related studies that contradict what he thinks and does, and his declarations that Canada is the world's first post-national state and that Canada's diversity is its strength have done untold damage to the lives of millions of Canadians, and he continues to allow into Canada many immigrants who want to make Canada into a carbon copy of the failed states they came from.